Hello, this is Grant Thomas, and I'm going to be interviewing Alex Nall, and Alex is going to be interviewing me.
Yeah.
We're both artists and have do some work with kids. That's probably why they paired us up.
Yeah. I figured that's why they clumped us together.
So, Alex, I just wondered if you could tell me, like, what is your workflow like? Like, how, like, from creative process and like, what time? How do you carve out time to do that? Because it sounds like you work at a library too.
hmm Yeah, I mean, for a while I was doing, two part-time jobs, and then coming home, sneaking in an hour or two at my desk, try to wake up a little earlier to, you know, get some sketches in or whatever. But I'm kind of blessed in that uh, I work a desk job essentially, and I'll bring my work with me and like do some pencils in between, um, moments when there's not a lot to do, or not too many patrons to help out. So I sneak it in here and there. And then when I was teaching with kids, like, I mean, essentially my job was to make comics with teenagers and middle schoolers. And so I would just bring my stuff and be like, all right, here's what I'm working on, and here's how I'm gonna like do this like inking on this one panel. And it essentially became like a inking demo for uh the class or whatever. So it's not really too hard for me to get into the flow of it. Today is my day off, so I mean, I'm just going to be in my studio for hopefully 8 hours, just working on pages. So
Wow. So, are you a pen and ink kind of guy?
yeah, I use nib,
Nice.
and my ink of choice is super black speedball,
Me too.
and then pentel brush pen for filling in black areas. For a while, I did like watercolors and stuff on directly onto my Bristol board. The last couple things I've done are just black and white, which has actually kind of freed me up a little bit, and I'm really enjoying that. But I also just got like the iPad Pro, so I've been messing around in Procreate and might try to do some digital stuff. So I hop around and try to experiment with different stuff.
Yeah. So I like that paper, even though it like I don't know, I still have a closet full of like comic book pages. I've been drawing them for like 15 years, but
Yeah,
um,
right.
like my hard drive, I've gone through like 5 hard drives, and then like you lose stuff on there, and I feel like even though paper could burn up or get water stained or something, it's still more permanent than digital. And I we have like a show every year where like all the teachers, the art teachers in my school district, um,
Mm.
hang up their stuff, and I always have a bunch to go with because you make like 24 pages for a book. So
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, there is something I try to collect, like, some original pages from friends or whatever, and hang them up on my wall or whatever. And um, it's really I love it because I mean, it's a piece of artwork. You can look at it and see like, okay, here's how I can tell they move their hand, or they use graphite on this part, or there's a little bit of white out here. And
yeah,
I don't know, that it really is like studying how to make this stuff. There's plenty of like artist editions of books, I feel like, now coming out for some of those like old masters who were kind of flying by the seat of their pants, making this stuff, inventing it as they go, and kind of set the stage for artists to come afterward. um
yeah. I went to a Hergé show in
yeah,
Quebec City, and of course they were trying to make it seem like he did everything. Which, reading about him, I know he didn't.
sure.
I mean, he did
Yeah,
a lot of it, and he was definitely very prolific. But yeah, it was fun to like get up and look at like the blue line. My dad's a
yeah,
designer in the 80s, was like drawing everything in blue line and like inking
yeah.
and all that stuff. So I kind of I think I do it out of nostalgia too. It's like, well, Is what Dad used to do.
Yeah, and even when I first got the like, the Apple Pencil or whatever, like the do digital, it took me like a couple months to like actually kind of be like, all right, just ease into it. Like it's gonna be different, but like as long as you're like transferring the skills you learned using traditional tools into this, it's just gonna be a little more streamlined or something. So I don't know. It's always changing, always evolving. But yeah, when I'm working directly on paper, that's when I feel like most like, in the zone or whatever.
Yeah, I did a comic book for my master's thesis actually, and I was just like, "There's going to be so many edits. I'm just going to do it digitally." Plus, like the text,
Yeah.
And so yeah, I did it, and it just I think also because I was learning to do it as I was making this huge document. Yeah, it just didn't do it as much for me, but like it was a workhorse. I mean, it got the job done.
Sure.
The my I have twins. They were like 4 months old, so I have their pictures of me like having one and a baby Bjorn and like drawing on there, and they're like checking it all
Yeah.
out. So definitely, if you go back for a master's, wait till the kids are older or before
I'll keep
kids.
that in mind. Yeah. Well, I
They
guess to
kind of
kind
come
of
when they
bounce.
come. So
Yeah. Well, kind of bouncing off what your question was, like, yeah, like I would imagine since you do have kind of a um you got kids in the house and you teach, right?
mhm.
You do classes. So like how do you manage to get time in for your stuff? Is it as easy, or do you have to kind of set a certain time when like, all right, the next 2 hours, don't do not disturb.
Yeah, I definitely have carved out that time in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but it's the time when everybody is asleep still and won't bother
Yeah.
me. I heard this interview with Al Roker, a weather guy.
Hmm.
He was like, I always get up way before I'm supposed to because even before the dog is up, because no one will bother me. And of course, he has to
Hmm.
sleep probably at like 5. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm up at 5 most days, and then
Mm,
I work until about 7 when everybody else gets up. And then since I've been teaching from this is my classroom right now.
sure.
Um, I just like put on a shirt.
Yeah.
um, but I've also, um, I think since we've all been like sheltering in place, I've been trying to just like once at 7 is done, I try not to do like art or teaching stuff until 8:25 when I'm like contractually supposed to be on
Okay.
the clock. So like I
Yeah.
eat breakfast with my kids and take walks with them. Probably stuff I should have been doing back when, you know. I think that's one good thing about this is that it's helped people realign their priorities in a way.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I was just realizing like how much work teaching was, and I was just kind of like, I don't know if this is worth it
Hmm.
for sacrificing not being with my family or just like being really crabby with them or not present.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, you really had to rethink all of it because of the world we're in right now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really is kind of changed so much, and I feel like, I mean, I really do like I kind of remember like maybe like back in like November or something, sometime last year, I was like to my girlfriend like, I just need like I just need like 3 months off to just do everything, not just like comics related, but like everything that's like been piling in the back of my
yeah,
head that I want to get
balance your
done.
checkbook.
Yeah. I mean, when it became apparent that like, yeah, don't go anywhere, and like I was getting paid from my job to, essentially stay home. So I was really, lucky in that way. But I remember like saying like, all right, here we go. Like I'm gonna like I don't I know how like, it can be really different and difficult for people who do have other like, obligations, or might suffer from some anxiety, rightfully so, with everything going on. But like I was really excited kind of for like
Yeah,
the time to just sit down, do what I want to, do. And it really did kind of like yeah, kind of kicked me into gear of like, okay, here's what I want to do every week now, since I have the time and no like, work obligations or something. So hopefully that transfers in some way where I'm still able to make rent or whatever. But
Yeah.
it is, it's definitely changed the way we some of us live. So
Yeah, I mean that's probably how my summers were before kids, was like kind of I just shifted to being like self-employed artist.
uh-huh.
And now I'm teaching at a school where you get a break every 8 weeks. You get 3 weeks, except the summer you get 6 weeks. So
Yeah.
it's a mess. I guess
Mhm.
winter you get a 3 week break, 2 week break, 3 week break, 6 week break. But
Yeah.
it breaks it up, which was nice because I remember in the old traditional system, I was always like gasping for air by the time Thanksgiving came around, and then
Sure.
I was just 2 days with your family, which is still kind of not.
Yeah, not much.
So now, yeah, I mean, when I get those 3 weeks, we go camping, and then I like draw like crazy for a week, and then, well, I guess the first week you always prepare to go camping. Then
Hmm.
you camp, then you come back and recover from camping, and draw like crazy. But haven't been doing as much camping lately. But uh, I do have my national park poster up in the corner there.
Nice.
Yeah. So, oh, I want to ask you about your Mr. Rogers book, because I like Mr. Rogers too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've got, yeah, let some word that is heard be yours. There's a biography I did of Mr. Rogers, and I kind of tied in some of my like teaching stuff in it. This is back when I was like doing like watercolor and ink together. I think I did this it was done in 2016, and then I self-published it in 2017 through Indiegogo. I did like a online campaign for it, and it was great. I just kind of wanted to learn about the guy, because when I was teaching at an elementary school, and I was having a really rough go of it for a while, and just like didn't feel like I was doing a very good job, and I was having like some problems with some of the students, and I found myself like, I don't know, I guess this was back when I was still like on Tumblr, and like, how you infinite scroll, and eventually like someone had posted like a video of him, and I watched the show when I was a kid or whatever, but like I watched this clip, and I remember like kind of like decompressing as I was watching it, and I felt immensely relieved. And so I just like every night after work I would watch like an episode of the show, and then eventually try to find out some more stuff about him. And they're really, back in like 2016, I mean, there was articles and stuff about him, but there was no like definitive like biography. There wasn't a the like the big documentary and movie with Tom Hanks hadn't come out yet, but like that like renaissance of all his stuff was just about to come out, and it was like going to be the 50th year of the show being on PBS. So it was really exciting, kind of just researching about somebody that I admired and wanted to learn about. And it was a really fun project. In fact, I mean, it's only like, it's about 75 pages, 72. And there's like, I like wish like I'm like kind of like, oh, now I know so much more than I did when I first was researching it. But it was a really, and I felt like people responded to it really well by like being like, oh, I didn't know this about him, or there's all the rumors about him having tattoos, and all the stuff that circulated in like the 90s or early internet days of who he was. And it was kind of surprising to me how many people bought into that or thought that was like the truth. So it was kind of fun dispelling that and actually being like, well, really, here's what it was. So
Yeah. I think he thought it was kind of funny too, because I saw that
Mhm,
documentary, "Won't You Be My Neighbor," and they asked him
mhm.
about, what do you think about those SNL parodies? And he was like,
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, and like, especially like, kind of later, like when I feel like MTV did like a parody of him, and there were all these other, like, he was such an easy target, like, because he was who he was so wholesome, and that's genuinely who he was. But yeah, in that documentary they have that scene where he's being Daniel Tiger, and he's like he's using Daniel as like a way to like say like, what's the point of all this, like, do I matter? And like it's really him, it's him asking that. It's kind of heartbreaking how like
yeah,
some of that stuff was really buried inside him, and like he really for a while didn't seem to like know how much of an impact he had, or in that way that like he couldn't. We all probably do mean something to somebody, but we just can't see it or feel it the way they do. And I mean, he was human. That's what another part of doing that project was like, all right, I want to know if this guy was like for real, who he was on TV, or if if he was if it was an act essentially, or if he was being a television personality. And from everything I could find, that's who he was. You were really getting him on the TV, which
yeah,
I'm not sure if we've seen anybody like that since.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I went to the puppetry museum, I think, in Atlanta, and they had a Jim
Hmm.
Henson show. And,
Hmm.
and it's not quite as direct, but you could see his philosophy come through, at least the Sesame Street stuff. But yeah, but it was still like these puppets are kind of the intermediary for that, whereas
Yeah,
Mr. Rogers is like right here.
directly right at you. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I didn't appreciate the show when I was a kid. I didn't have
Hmm.
TV until second grade, and so I kind of would. The only thing we really were allowed to watch was PBS once we got one,
Hmm.
and nothing was on.
Sure.
It would be appealing. So my sister was watching it, and I was like, I would sit there and watch it because it was on, because like it was better than no TV.
Yeah. Right.
And I was like, yeah, this is kind of boring. But like now as an adult, knowing like child psychology and all this
Hmm.
stuff. And my kids watched Daniel Tiger when it
Yeah.
came out, and I was like, man, they really know like what preschoolers need.
Hmm.
And finding out like there's all this, like I think he had an educational psychology background or something like that, um, or at least was very well versed in it. And so, yeah, I appreciate it now as an adult. I kind of wish I would have been on the ball with it when I was younger, but
Yeah, I definitely think it takes a certain type of uh, kid to be into it at that age. And I'm not even really sure. I have memories of watching the show as a kid. I'm not sure how much of it I really grasped or whatever. But like you know there have been other people that have discussed this, but he had such a rigid structure to the show. Like, same opening sequence with the taking off the coat, put it on the shoes, and then it like usually transitions to like picture, and then someone comes visits, or oh, okay, now we're gonna leave and like it set this like precedent of like there's a routine to your day. And
yeah,
I mean, I really do kind of like remember when the show would be over, when he like you can hear like the music, and you're like it goes into your mind like, oh, we're about to, like, the show's about to end, like he's gonna leave. I don't want him to leave. I want the day
yeah,
to keep going. And I think that even just having that routine, or that like idea of like, here are the things we do in a day, for me or whatever, was calming, or kind of reassured me at whatever age I was watching it, that like, I this is what it means to be a human being, to make connections with people. So
yeah,
yeah, there's just a myriad of ways to watch
yeah. I've
that show
noticed
and analyze it.
as a teacher, people would be like, "Well, this kid's desk is disorganized," and I did some like work in our some of our neighbors or neighborhoods that are a little more down and out in Champaign, and like, helping people get there was an organization that would like help redo your roof or something. So of course you go in their house and like help them like move their furniture away from the drips or something. And
Hmm.
like, I was like, well, I'm not surprised that some of these kids don't have their desk organized because their home doesn't have furniture. So like
Mm,
their clothes
yeah,
were in garbage bags.
sure.
And so yeah, that idea of that routine, and like kids really do love routine. Like one of the things I
Yeah,
fortunately learned early on was they were like, if you have anxious kids, put a schedule on the board. Oh, duh. Like I know what
totally.
I'm gonna do, but I didn't
Yeah.
tell the kids what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was teaching is kind of one of the things I like to focus on in my work, because I have no background in education or anything. I was like an English major in college and just kind of fell into it through, you know, gigs drawing at people's uh like school events or birthday parties or something. And then eventually I, got offered something. But I've kind of looked through all of all of your stuff, and I've noticed you have some subjects that seem to stand out or reappear. And I know you've got a little bit of like interest in mythology,
Hmm.
and that thing you're showing me earlier, the music seems to play a big part in uh, your work.
Yeah.
And then um, you do like some really really cool things with like just the design of your comics. That like new normal mini you've got, like where it folds out into like the house.
Hmm.
um do you like when you're kind of like sitting down to do a project, do you have like a list of, okay, I just did a music one, now I'm going to do one about Medusa, or how do you choose some of the projects you make?
Well, I'm kind of at a writer's block on Medusa right now.
Yeah.
I almost feel like, so my kids asked to get Dungeons and Dragons for Christmas.
Hmm.
I feel like all my storytelling efforts are going into that.
Yeah,
But like the
for sure.
music one is, um, I started off, I was like, I'm gonna write some reviews of like albums that I really liked, and I was like, everybody does that. And I had seen, what's Almost Famous, and I was like,
Hmm.
okay, what if I did something kind of like that, where I made this kind of surrounded this narrative around the reviews. And of course, you have this silent medium to talk about sound. uh,
Yeah.
and then so I started making those, and they started off being autobiographical. And I was like, well, that's also kind of cliche, and I don't really want to throw my family over under the bus. I
Sure.
mean, there's a lot that's very much taken from that. So yeah, that one's going for a while. That one's gone for a while, the My Life and Records stuff. And what I'm really challenged by now is like it's 150 pages in, and I'm like, how do I keep this interesting without just like putting the little notes in there, or
Yeah.
the colors to suggest something. So I think that's probably what keeps that interesting for me, and I definitely have like an end in sight. But yeah, it's really a way for me to kind of like talk indirectly about like addiction, fundamentalist Christianity, like all these other things that I grew up with through the lens of like being a music lover. And I was thinking it's also kind of funny that like I don't listen that much music anymore because like when I had kids, I started listening to more podcasts because I just needed to like have adult voice in my
Yeah.
ears, or just quiet.
Sure.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, like a couple weeks ago, my grandpa died, and he was like a huge music guy. He was a dentist, but like he had all this recording equipment. He would like go record jazz musicians. He
Mhm.
gave me my first copy of Dark Side of the Moon, like
Oh
very
wow.
out. He
Kind
appears.
of introduce you to some of the stuff that would go on to influence you.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so he shows up in some of those, like there's a grandpa character that has
That's cool.
recording equipment. But yeah, I mean, just like yesterday, like doing puzzles with the kids, and like we put on, he liked show tunes too, so we put on like Camelot or
Yeah.
and you know, that's a good D&D soundtrack, so they like
Yeah.
that. I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah, so the music is definitely big. I mean, I make them look like little CDs.
Yeah, that's what I know. When you held that up, I was like, oh, that looks like a Nirvana like outtakes, like
Yeah,
like LP
so
or something.
I love the design of like Blue Note jazz albums.
Yeah, totally.
So this is a total ripoff of
Yeah.
Blues and the Abstract Truth, I think was the name of the album. I don't remember now, but I did a bunch of sketches of like, what if I did grunge albums that were designed by Blue Note designers? And then like the fold up ones was more like for Patreon. I was making these little mini comics every month or every other month, and I about died doing that. But it was something I could send in the mail for like under $1. You know,
Yeah,
you just
right.
put it in the mail for a stamp and like not have to go, especially once COVID hit. I didn't want to go to the post office.
Sure.
So that was kind of where that was. But I've always kind of been interested in like, you know, origami and like accordion books and things like that. So
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, I think if like, I mean, it's mini comics are such a great like place to start if you're, you know, interested in doing like eventually like long format books or narratives or something, because it like if you're doing like an 8-page mini, it really kind of seems like, all right, I only have 8 pages to work with. But like after you do it a few times, you're like, oh no, wait, if I like kind of like, but I could like do like a thing on the back side too. I can like actually make it like double-sided or yeah, like there's so many different ways that you can just play around with that simple format that it kind of gives you the building blocks later on to like play around with stuff in you know, larger projects or more ambitious projects.
Yeah, and I think just having like my dad being a graphic designer in the house, like he was in our basement doing a lot of stuff, and still till he did design for U of I, which everybody eventually works for U of I in Champaign. But
Sure.
I think yeah, that was definitely like books are like objects and products as well as a storytelling venue.
Yeah.
So he kind of taught me to make sure you're like looking at all of that. And it's not like, because I remember I made like a first comic book story, and I was like, huh, now I got to do a cover. You know,
Yeah.
like, oh, it's got to be. And so yeah, I mean, this was where yeah, I made it, and then I was like, maybe I should make them square. So they look like little.
Yeah, and like sometimes the design elements of a book really are actually add to the like the story itself. Like, you know, if you like are thinking about like, okay, what format should it be in, or like, yeah, what colors should be on there.
Yeah, and it started off.
It really does like add another element to the not just story, but like the book as object or you know, a thing that you can just kind of, you know, ooh, I want to like examine. Like when we were doing the spine of this one, I was like, you know, oh, how can I show? Yeah, it's got like Mr. Rogers' tie at
Nice.
the top. That, you know, I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be fun if somebody's like looking just like on like a shelf or whatever and sees that. Hopefully it's just going to be like, wait, I know that red sweater or you know, tie combination. And you know, it was a fun element just like at the last second to put in.
Yeah. So yeah, I had that. I don't know if this one showed up ever, but I got this little nun.
Oh, nice.
I'm not Catholic, so sometimes I worry that like I might offend somebody with this, but you know, like you can open up her little vest.
Yeah.
And then like,
oh yeah, that
is
so cool.
Then you pull the accordion book out and
little nuns.
So
that's awesome.
I mean, that's my first gag in the book, right? This flying nun.
Yeah, right. So like when you're like designing that, like is that just like hours of like how do I make like like when like it opens up, her arms are there, her face, like do you have to like do a bunch of different, drafts of that or whatever to figure
Yeah, I
that
mean, I
out,
do a
or is
lot of
it?
goofing off.
Yeah.
Just like fold and cut and
For sure.
I always think it's kind of a dumb trope where they like have the pile of the balled up paper by the garbage can, but there is some amount of that when I'm making something like this.
Yeah.
Um, I have actually when went to art ed school, they were really big on telling me to do bookmaking with kids, and so I
Hmm.
got all these different like diagrams about how to fold different kinds of books up. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, part of it was like I've just been kind of working my way through that. Um, so, yeah, this one was it was called a maze book. So you unravel it, and it's just like
Oh,
I don't know.
cool.
It's kind of like a back when we had maps, you had to fold them up right.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
oh my
that's
gosh,
cool,
is it
man.
already almost a half hour? Holy.
Yeah, I think so actually.
All right.
I
Well,
I guess the only other thing I kind of wanted to ask, like, is you do like Dodo comics? Is that like yearly, annual, like one man anthology sort of thing, or
yeah, and I called
just
it
different
Dodo.
stories?
Yeah, it's just like little my anthology. I call it
Okay.
Dodo because it's like it might be my last book because like I don't know. I've got they've got 2 10-year-olds in 6 years they're going to be driving. We might, like I might
Yeah,
have four,
totally.
4 jobs to do car insurance or something like that, and no more
Sure,
comics. So
sure. Who knows? Well, how many issues of those have you done?
I'm on issue number 6. So yeah, I started
Cool.
putting the Medusa
Well,
thing in there, and that's the first time I had something continue. Um, so for used to be I was just like, let's do like 8 one-page stories or just and I would try to like
yeah.
experiment and stuff. There was one time I did one that was uh what do they call that? A palindrome. I was like,
Hmm.
what if I made a palindrome as a comic? So all the panels look the same and then they reverse, but the
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
That's a cool idea.
So it's kind of like my lab.
Yeah, that's great. Really fun. Well, cool, man. Well, I definitely like want to get some of your stuff, or I'll send you a package of mine if you want to trade or something. And
Yeah.
um, would love to take a look at the Unfold the Nun and see what other surprises lurk
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah. She's surprising. So all right. Well,
Cool.
thanks for sitting down and talking with me.
Yeah, totally. This is great. I'm glad this is going on in the year of no conventions or
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things I love about those fests is you get to meet new folks and take home new stuff. So I'm glad get to
Yeah.
meet you and
And
check out your
it's
stuff.
longer than I normally would talk to someone at a convention because I
Yeah.
always have so many people coming to my table.
floods of them.
Yeah. All righty. Well, I'm going to go
Cool.
ahead and stop that.